F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "That is part of the beauty of all literature. You discover that your longings are universal longings, that you're not lonely and isolated from anyone. You belong." My course to literacy began as a beeline, speedily attempting to get on that route that would lead me to the success of reading by myself. My route began with my parents, the ones who cherished all types of literature and read to me everything they could get their hands on. My mother read to me the children's story, Love You Forever, when I went to bed every night around the age of 3. I fell in love with that book and enjoyed it immensely when she would set me in her lap and ask me to read it to her, pointing out each word with her index finger. She also read to me Goodnight Moon, The Picture Book of Mother Goose, and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. When I ran out of books to read, I would sneak into my brother's room and steal his comic books, reading about Spider-Man and the X-Men. I read The Very Hungry Caterpillar in 2nd grade, the first book I read on my own. When I reached elementary school, an entirely different world opened up to me. Later, I found out about the library, my safe haven. Books were my best friends growing up. They taught me that there is both good and evil, that sometimes those lines are not bold and can be blurred and fuzzy around the edges. Some books even showed me how unfair life can be, like when Fred, Tonks, and Lupin were killed in the war in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, or when Leslie Burke drowned in Bridge to Terabithia. The books that I read often gave me the feeling of complete and utter fulfillment when I finished a book. They also affected me deeply, some of them leaving me desolate and aching, or jovial and full of wonder. While reading, I enjoyed every descriptive word, soaking them up like a sponge. Math and science held no interest for me. However, history also played a role in my literacy. After we would learn things in school, I would come home and read aloud from the textbook. When I moved on to chapter books, I would pace back and forth in my room with the door closed and read aloud that way, just so if I was called on in class to read, I would not mess up. I had many books from the Babysitter's Club series and read up until number 108. I also enjoyed scary books, which led to my lack of sleep due to fear. I always read above my grade level. When my siblings were outside playing, I would sit outside reading. In middle school, I continued to read even more high-level books. It eventually tapered off, however, because my grades began to slip. I came home with C's in my English classes because we had begun poetry and learning the different parts of clauses and sentences. I just didn't feel like dealing with it because I didn't understand it, so I gave up. However, entering Mr. Sloane's class of League Academy put me back on the right path. He instilled in me the enthusiasm and earnest I had failed to commit to in other classes, delving deeper into novels with his students. In middle school, I read the Twilight series, the Click series, The Giver, The Lord of the Flies, and several Sarah Dessen books. In high school, my grades automatically rose. I started caring again, learning about Greek mythology and things that actually interested me. I don't understand why, but the second time I learned about the different parts of the sentence, I understood and comprehended them, and enjoyed learning what's more. I fell for the classics, reading Wuthering Heights, Pride and Prejudice, and The Great Gatsby. After reading Pride and Prejudice, I admit to also reading the novel Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I also read 2 novel series I had missed out on while they were popular, Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings. In English class, I read Animal Farm, Prince of Tides, The Stranger, Things Fall Apart, and several stories of the Odyssey. As J.R.R. Tolkien once said, fantasy is escapist and that is its glory. If a soldier is imprisoned by the enemy, don't we consider it his duty to escape? If we value the freedom of mind and soul, if we're partisans of liberty, then it's our plain duty to escape, and to take as many people with us as we can. I agree with Tolkien because literature is my escape, my release, my safe haven.